President Trump's war on drug trafficking getting even larger in scale, the president declaring cartels as unlawful combatants, paving the way for wartime powers.
A drug dealer will kill 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people during the course of his or her life. Thousands of people are killed, or their lives are destroyed, their families are destroyed.
At 4:32 a.m., Minneapolis was completely still. Snow covered the streets, lights reflecting off the ice. Then suddenly, the silence broke. More than 120 federal agents from the FBI and ICE moved into position without sirens. A convoy of 18 black SUVs, 3 tactical trucks, and 2 mobile command units sealed off the block in just over 4 minutes. Their headlights were cut a full block away. Neighbors sleeping behind those quiet windows had no idea that one of the largest coordinated federal operations in the city was unfolding outside their doors. The target was not a warehouse. It was not a cartel bunker near the border. It was a $9.8 million mansion hidden behind iron gates, security cameras, and tall hedges. The home belonged to Judge Ibrahim Hassan Karim and his wife, Dr. Layla Hassan Karim, a couple known in public as symbols of success, influence, and respect. But according to federal investigators, that mansion was hiding far more than wealth. At exactly 4:52 a.m., the order was given. Flashbangs exploded at the front entrance. Glass shattered. The sound rolled through the neighborhood like thunder. Then came the command that ripped through the darkness. Federal agents, search warrant, drop your weapons. What happened next stunned even veteran agents. Inside the mansion, they did not find panic. They found a defense force. 42 armed guards were already in position across hallways, staircases, and upper balconies. This was not random resistance. This was a private army protecting something worth killing for, and the numbers behind that secret were even worse. Before sunrise, agents would uncover evidence tied to 1.8 tons of narcotics, $148 million in cash, and a criminal pipeline worth more than $834 million. This was not a family home. It was the front door to a hidden empire. If you saw 40 armed guards inside a judge's home, would you call that protection or something much darker? Comment protection or hidden empire below.
President Trump has secured our borders and will continue to fight the cartels throughout this country, deport them all, or lock them up for the rest of their lives thanks to our prosecutors around this country where they belong.
But this operation did not begin at the mansion. It started 24 hours earlier on what looked like an ordinary traffic stop. A 37-year-old local woman was pulled over on a routine patrol outside Minneapolis. At first, the scene looked messy, but harmless. She argued with officers. She shouted that the stop was illegal. People nearby pulled out their phones. Within minutes, short clips of the confrontation were spreading online, and many viewers thought they were watching another case of government overreach. Then, agents opened the rear cargo compartment. Inside were 160 kilograms of high-purity methamphetamine packed in black plastic, along with $4.6 million in vacuum-sealed cash. In that moment, the story changed completely. Under questioning, the woman said little, but her phone records, travel history, and banking activity said much more. Investigators found a pattern. Her deliveries matched key hearing dates, sealed motions, and sentencing decisions tied to the same courthouse. That was the first sign this was not street-level trafficking. Someone inside the system was controlling the rhythm. Then came the financial review. Over 5 years, agents traced $834 million through shell companies and offshore accounts linked to the Somali judge and his wife. By nightfall, federal command understood the truth. They were not chasing a courier. They were closing in on the bench itself. By late evening, the case had grown far beyond a drug investigation. What agents were now seeing was something much darker. Judge Ibrahim Hassan Karim and his wife, Dr. Layla Hassan Karim, were not simply living above their means. They were sitting at the center of a protected criminal machine. Over the previous 5 years, investigators traced $834 million through shell companies, offshore accounts, fake consulting firms, and property holdings spread across 3 continents. That kind of money does not move by accident. It moves with planning, protection, and powerful help. The deeper agents looked, the clearer the pattern became. Court records showed that major drug defendants connected to cartel networks kept receiving the same strange advantages. Evidence was delayed. Hearings were pushed back. Sentences were quietly reduced. Warrants lost momentum. Witnesses changed direction. On paper, each decision looked technical, but together, they formed a system. That system pointed back to the bench. Judge Karim had the power to slow cases, shape outcomes, and protect key players at exactly the right moment. His wife, Dr. Layla Hassan Karim, according to investigators, acted as the financial shield. Money flowed through charities, real estate purchases, legal partnerships, and business fronts that made dirty cash look clean. One controlled the courtroom, the other controlled the cover. This was no longer corruption at the edges, it was corruption at the center. Federal command realized they were dealing with more than bribery. They were dealing with a husband and wife operation that had turned legal authority into a weapon. Every ruling, every delay, every signature may have helped move narcotics safely through Minnesota and beyond. But one question still remained. If this couple had protected a pipeline worth hundreds of millions of dollars, where was the product being hidden? A mansion in a quiet neighborhood should not have been able to support a criminal network of that size. That was when the FBI made a critical decision. Before they could tear open the house, they would first have to see what was buried beneath it. If a judge can control outcomes like this, can the system still be trusted? Comment trust or broken. 3 hours before the raid, FBI surveillance drones began scanning the property from above. Agents were not looking at the mansion itself. They were studying the ground behind the detached garage. On thermal imaging, one section of frozen earth was glowing with unusual heat. In the middle of a Minneapolis winter, that made no sense. The pattern was too large for a pipe and too steady for a mechanical fault. Something powerful was running under that property. At 4:52 a.m., the order was given. Flashbangs exploded through the front entrance. The front windows shook. Glass broke across the marble floor. Then came the command that shattered the silence. Federal agents, search warrant, drop your weapons. But the people inside were ready. This was not the confused panic of a wealthy family caught off guard. This was a trained defense. 42 armed guards moved into position almost instantly, taking cover behind staircases, hallway corners, and stone columns. They knew the layout. They knew the angles. They were not trying to escape. They were trying to hold the house. For several violent minutes, the mansion became a battlefield. Gunfire tore through drywall and shattered chandeliers. Agents pushed forward with ballistic shields, room by room, using controlled force and tight formation. Flashbangs disoriented the defenders. Tactical teams closed distance fast and cut off movement between floors. The goal was not a massacre. The goal was to break resistance, secure the building, and take prisoners alive. One by one, the guards were forced to the ground, restrained, and removed. In less than 12 minutes, the mansion was under federal control. Then the real shock began. Behind a false wall in a guest suite, agents found 1.8 tons of narcotics stacked in sealed bricks. In the lower level, hidden inside reinforced storage chambers, they uncovered another 2.8 tons of heroin and synthetic compounds packed in industrial containers. Throughout the house, in floor safes, steel lockers, custom cabinets, and hidden vaults, agents recovered $148 million in cash. But even that was not the end. The thermal anomaly behind the garage led agents to a concealed hydraulic platform built into the concrete floor. When they activated it, the slab shifted open, revealing a reinforced underground entryway. Below it was a massive hidden tunnel system equipped with ventilation shafts, industrial lighting, steel doors, rolling tracks, and enough storage space to support a long-term trafficking operation. This was no emergency escape route. This was infrastructure. By sunrise, federal agents were no longer standing inside a luxury residence. They were standing inside a private fortress built to protect a criminal empire hidden beneath the surface of an American neighborhood. A hidden tunnel under a mansion. How is that even possible? Comment inside job if you think someone helped cover it up. Once the gunfire stopped, the battle moved upstairs. In the judge's private study, federal agents seized 10 encrypted computers, 14 external drives, and a secure communications unit that was still running when the team entered the room. The machines were warm. Data was still moving. Analysts knew they had only a short window before remote wipes or rotating encryption keys could destroy everything. So while tactical officers secured the mansion, cyber forensic teams rushed in and froze the system state in place. What appeared on those screens changed the case again. The mansion was not the final destination for the drugs. It was the command center. Shipment logs, coded payment ledgers, and transport maps showed a network far larger than one house, one judge, or one city block. Every route led outward, to freight terminals, bonded storage sites, refrigerated trucking companies, and most importantly, the port. Then agents found the names. Not 12 officials this time, but 24 port and logistics officials tied to the same network. Their names were buried inside clearance logs, container override records, and private payment schedules. These were not outside criminals forging access. These were insiders using legitimate credentials to move illegal cargo through legal channels. They were opening gates, clearing containers, and bypassing inspections in minutes. The numbers were staggering. Investigators found records showing container checks being overridden in less than 8 minutes, allowing narcotics to disappear into inland transport almost as soon as ships docked. Monthly transfers linked to the operation ranged from $540,000 to $2.8 million per official, all routed through shell companies connected to the same financial web that had protected the judge and his wife. At that point, the full picture became clear. The courtroom had protected the network from the law. The mansion had stored and directed the product, but the port was where the machine breathed. It was the entry gate that kept the empire alive. Then came the most urgent discovery of all. One live shipment was still in motion. A coded customs release showed that a major incoming load was scheduled to clear the port in less than 2 hours. If the dock crews learned the judges had been taken, the cargo could be moved, burned, or dumped before sunrise was fully over. There was no time for a long briefing, no time to build a second operation from scratch. The tactical commander looked at the screen, grabbed his radio, and made the call. The mansion raid was finished. Now the war was moving to the waterfront. By 6:22 that morning, the federal convoy was already moving toward the port. The city was awake, but the sky still felt lifeless. A cold, gray light hung over the harbor. Fog drifted between cranes and stacked containers, stretching across long concrete lanes where trucks would soon begin their daily routes. From a distance, everything looked ordinary, quiet, industrial, routine. But inside the command vehicles, no one believed in ordinary anymore. Not after the mansion, not after the tunnel, not after seeing a judge's home turned into a fortress and a command center for poison moving through the heart of America. Agents understood what this operation meant. The mansion had been the shell. The port was the bloodstream. And if they moved too slowly, that bloodstream would disappear into fog, steel, and fire. More than 200 federal agents entered the port in 3 coordinated waves. One team secured the customs office before any warning could be sent. Another swept through the bonded storage yards. The third moved directly toward the warehouse zone identified in the encrypted files. This time, they weren't searching. They already knew where the rot was. Resistance came fast. Armed men emerged between rows of containers like shadows rising from the mist. Some fired from behind forklifts and loading rigs. Others ran deeper into the maze, trying to buy time, to destroy records, burn cargo, or push shipments into outbound trucks. But the window had already closed. Federal marksmen locked down the gunmen from elevated positions. Tactical teams advanced through the container lanes, shields up, rifles steady. Orders cut through the fog. Flashbangs exploded in tight spaces. Metal doors slammed. One by one, the resistance collapsed. In under 10 minutes, the perimeter was secure. Then agents breached the warehouse. Inside, the truth was worse than expected. Behind pallets labeled frozen food and medical supplies stood sealed crates stacked nearly to the ceiling. The front rows were a cover. As agents cut deeper into the cargo, the scale became clear. Brick after brick, pack after pack. Powder, capsules, synthetic compounds, all prepared for distribution across the Midwest. This was not a smuggling point. This was a feeding chamber. Initial inventory confirmed 2.2 tons of heroin, 1.6 tons of fentanyl, and another 840 kilograms of packaged narcotics ready for transport. Enough to devastate entire communities. In the office overlooking the docks, investigators found the documents that completed the picture. Clearance logs, container overrides, payment schedules, offshore routing records. Every page told the same story. This network had not survived by avoiding the system. It had survived by operating inside it. The records identified 24 port and logistics officials tied to the operation. These were not outsiders. They had badges, access cards, and authority. They opened gates, bypassed inspections, and cleared containers in under 8 minutes. That was the real danger, not just the drugs, but the betrayal. By noon, the corridor was shut down. 11 tons of narcotics seized, $148 million in assets frozen. 42 armed guards in custody, 24 officials exposed, 2 judges facing charges that could end their lives behind bars. But numbers never tell the full story. Behind every ton was a community that might have been poisoned. Behind every payment was a system that failed the innocent. And that was the final lesson. Evil does not always wear a mask. Sometimes it wears a robe. Sometimes it carries a badge. Sometimes it signs documents in quiet offices while entire communities are destroyed behind closed doors. Justice cannot survive on appearances alone. It survives only when the truth is brought into the light, no matter how powerful the people hiding in the dark may be. By 9:14 a.m., analysts cracked a secondary folder hidden inside the judge's encrypted drives, labeled only Schedule B. What they found froze the room. Case numbers, hearing dates, and coded approvals didn't stop in Minneapolis. They extended across state lines, Illinois, Texas, even federal circuits. And one name appeared again and again, tied to altered rulings and missing evidence. This wasn't coincidence. It was coordination. Somewhere, another judge was still on the bench, still signing orders, still moving cases, still protecting the pipeline. And unlike Kareem, this one hadn't been exposed yet. If one judge fell, how many are still inside? Comment 1 or network.